All right. So we've got our tournament once again this year, and I'm really excited to have all of you here to support. As you know, it takes all of us to make a really clean event, and the officials, the judges, are what makes the competition, and ensuring that we have very professional officials that are all on the same page will make sure that all of the competitors feel like they've been treated fairly and that it's run professionally. We know that here in our school and within the Moo Duk Kwan, professionalism is a big part of our philosophy as it relates to discipline and respect. So it's very important that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's go over the competition and the rules. So first here I have let's see, I'll make sure I get the right screen here. Here it is. Okay, so here's the tournament for this year. And you see the schedule where we'll be having the check-in and then the board breaking seminar and then also a sparring seminar. And I hope all of you will participate in both of those. And then on Saturday, lineup and demonstrations. After the demonstrations, we'll start with the kids competition where all of you will judge. I'm probably going to give some of the more experienced Samdans the opportunity to be center so that you have that experience. And then afterwards, we'll have lunch. Everyone who is a participating in full competition will be getting lunch during the event, and then all of you that will be judging will also be getting lunch for the event. So you won't need to worry about that. And then in the afternoon, we'll have the adult and dawn competition, and we'll make sure that the most experienced judges are judging at that point. Okay, so that's the schedule overall. Now, as we look at, let's see, I'm trying to find. Yeah, I'll just go back to here. I thought I had the rules. Here we go. Okay, so the rules for this year are same as in previous years. So first of all, with the Hyung competition, there will be 3 or 5 judges for each ring, and the judges will be issuing the points according to the scoring system below here. Remember that if a competitor makes a mistake during the competition, then the head referee will give the competitor one more chance to perform the form. Each judge, each of the 3 or each of the 5 will deduct 1/10 of a point from the score. So assuming there was no mistake, let's say that you were judging it, you would score it as a 7.6. You would then reduce it down to a 7.5. So first in your mind score, if there wasn't a mistake, what would the score be? And then reduce it just by 1/10 of a point. That's the expectation there. We want to make sure mistake doesn't mean your interpretation of the form. Because remember, we're going to have different instructors here, and we'll have people from even other similar but different styles. So they may have been taught the form differently. So if you're used to doing sangdang gongyak, high punch, and then you see somebody doing a center punch, that's not necessarily a mistake. A mistake would be you can see that they're rattled, they're confused about the form, they make an extra long pause, or they ask to start over. They could do that as well. Any of those things where it's obviously they made a mistake, it's more like a break in their concentration rather than saying, they didn't do the technique correctly. Okay, so that's what a mistake is. Okay. So that'll happen if there's a mistake. Then if there's a tie, then they ask the competitors to demonstrate a second kyung. That means that they could do a different form or they could do the same form. Doesn't matter which one they do, you will judge the form based on the merits of that form. Make sure that when you score, The gut members, the colored belts, will be at a 7-point scale, with 7.5 being the average. So if you haven't seen them at all, a 7.5 is going to be what you expect them to be at. That's expectation. 7.6 and above is exceeding expectation. 7.4 and below is below expectation. Now, that said, the way that I do it is you look at how many competitors are there. If there are 3, the scoring is all you're doing with the scoring, regardless, is figuring out who's first, second, and third. So please don't, if it's small numbers, you should not judge the same person with the same score. You need to say, this person was a little better, so give them a higher score. 2 people will participate at the same time. And so you'll be able to see 2 competitors together at the beginning, and then you can compare the 2. Leave space. So one thing that I do is I say, okay, I like to not give anyone lower than a 7.4. Because if you're right, imagine being the competitor that gets a 7.1. That's not very, we want everyone to leave feeling good. So yeah, Miss Garcia doesn't like that. So what we want to do is put, if they're not going to medal, 7.4. And then what you do is the first competitor that comes out, if you think that they have a chance at medaling, if they didn't really blow it, then you would give them like a 7.6. And then the person that's a little better, maybe give them a 7.8. Or you do a 7.5 and a 7.7, but you leave a little bit of space. And then you'll be able to fill in the holes to try and figure out who's where, right? But the idea is that you space it out, and then you're trying to rank where everyone is at and identify who the top 3 are. So you'll want to leave kind of the 7.9, 7.8, 7.7s for the people that are getting first, second, and third. And then you want to leave more like the 7.5s and the 7.4s to the people that probably won't get a medal. Okay. So that's the logic that I use in my head. That might be really complicated for some, but that's something to think about. Okay. So as long as you are being consistent in the way that you're scoring, it doesn't matter what the other judges score. So you shouldn't feel influenced if the center judge just gave a 7.5 and you did a 7.7. It doesn't matter as long as you stay consistent and say, okay, that's a 7.7. Who's better than that and who's not as good as that? Okay. So don't feel rattled that way. Criteria and approved forms. You can do any hyung, any form that's connected to the Moo Duk Kwan history. So I've placed here the forms that are typically found and taught within the Moo Duk Kwan, but there are others that have been taught in the past that are no longer being taught. And most people don't know what those are, but there are some schools that perform these forms, and we want to recognize that they're doing a traditional Tong Sudo form. Okay, so even if you're doing things like Iship Sabo, Basai So, there's a handful of different forms that we'll accept. We're using the Founders Volume 1 textbook for the criteria on what a good form is. But you want to look at basically, is the form believable? Is the techniques performed in such a way that are athletic and effective in combat? Right? So if they're effective in combat, they look real, they're athletically performed, then you're going to give that a high score. Okay, strong eyesight, strong key-op, good posture, strength of the stance, waist twisting, okay, strong weapon discipline, weapon to target accuracy, things like that. Okay, what you're not going to do is base it on what you think the correct interpretation of the form is. So like in Pyongan Idan, you do it like this, and then you see somebody do the form like that. You're not going to consider that a good or bad. Now, if they go like this, or they go like this, you could ding them for that, right? Because the principle there is that you need to have the wrist straight, because that's effectiveness. So that's the difference. Questions on how we score on forms? Okay, so those of you that may be scorekeepers or timekeepers for forms, we have a form here that you'll be using. And it looks like this. And basically, you'll just write the different names in here. So we'll say it's Miss Garcia, and then we've got Mrs. Nelson, and then we've got Mr. Coombs. And you three are competing. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll just read, you'll stand up and you'll be reading the scorecard. So all of the 3 or 5 judges will hold a scorecard. And then you'll have one person stand up and you'll read from left to right the scores. And because they're all Dons, it'll be an 8-point scale. So Miss Garcia will get an 8.6, 8.5, 8.7. Mrs. Nelson will get an 8.8, 8.5, 8.4, something like that, right? And then Mr. Coombs will get an 8.5, 8.5, 8.5, right? We don't know. Sometimes it lines up, sometimes it doesn't. But you'll do that. If there's 3 judges, then you'll take that and you'll add it up. And that will be the total score. If there are 5 scores, then what you do here is you will do the same thing. You'll just add up the middle scores. You'll take out the high. That's the high score. So we cross that one out. And then we cross out the lowest score. And then you'll add up the remaining 3 scores, and that will be the total score.
Are you seeing?
So just calculator on your phone. You're gonna do the scoring on the sheet, and use your calculator to identify the total score, and then you'll place the total score right here. Okay, total score. Then, based on the scores, you figure out first, second, and third. If there's a tie and there's 5 judges, you add back in the high and the low score, and you redo the totals for the ties. And that will break the tie. If there's still a tie, or you were with just 3 judges, then you'll need to go ahead and have them do another form. Any questions on how the scorekeeping works on that? So 2 roles. One person will be the one who stands up and says 7.5, 7.6, 7.7. The other person that's there will be in charge of writing down the scores on the sheet and then doing the calculation. And then they'll call up the next competitors. Okay, so they'll be in charge of the flip charts. Okay, questions on forms, or we're going to move to sparring?
Salman.
Mr. Persinger.
Yes, sir. On tiebreakers, are we rescoring? Meaning on the tiebreaker form, if they have to do a second form, are we scoring it, or are we doing a show of hands situation?
That's a good question. We've always rescored it.
Yes, sir.
But I'm going to make the decision that we move away from that, and let's add that to the rule book, because that way sometimes you get a third tie, and that's just going to save us time. So on the tiebreaker, what you'll do is a show of hands, and it'll be 3 or 5 judges, and that'll determine the winner. Thank you for that, because we're changing that a little bit at nationals, aren't we? I think.
I don't know, sir.
I think
that way, so that would be good.
But let's do that, because it's cleaner and it's a tiebreaker, so I think that's fine. We'll change that in the text of the rules. Okay, good. Other questions on forms, or we'll move to sparring. Okay, sparring's a little more complicated. Oh, we got to do breaking first. So with breaking, really what we'll do is we'll have just one judge in the ring, and then we'll have an assistant that's kind of, putting the boards back together and placing them on the bricks. So the breaking competition, very simple. It's power breaking. It's re-breakable boards, and you just increase the level of difficulty of the boards, and it's with a hammer fist break coming down, supported by 2 cinder blocks. Competitors may or may not use a hand pad for protection. So anything like a foam pad or a cloth pad or a glove, doesn't matter what they use. They can use whatever they want. We're not so concerned about, we just want to make sure that they feel safe and that they can try and hit that thing as hard as possible in a safe way. Okay, so that's the breaking competition. What you'll do is you'll start them off. You'll do a single bow at the beginning and then a single bow at the end. So you don't have to bow every time you get to the board, just beginning and end. And then you'll just single file one at a time, break the white board, break the yellow board, break the orange board. When a competitor doesn't break their board, it's single elimination. So then they'll step off to the side and have a seat. Now, once you get towards the end, sometimes nobody can break the board. So then everyone who didn't break comes back in line and continues to try and do the break until it's determined a winner. Okay. So the last three come, you're at the brown board, nobody breaks the brown board. All three come back and you try again. You could have them break the other brown board, or you could go down to the blue board, or you could bring them and do the brown and the blue board. That'll be the discretion of the judge on how you do that. As long as you're consistent within that round, you'll be fine. Okay. Yes, Mr. Coombs.
The slide I'm seeing, sir, still has the criteria for judging Hyung, and then Gekba is at the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So this is it. You'll be able to see it. We just talked through that.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions on the board breaking competition? Interested to know, just talk to me offline if any of you feel like you'd enjoy being the judge and over the board breaking. Usually what we do is we have one judge kind of dedicated to that. And then we just rotate throughout the day. When a group doesn't have something to do, they go to the board breaking ring and go through that. Okay. All right. Moving on to sparring. So requirements, Dobok, of course, protective gear, headgear, hand pads, mouth guard, growing cups for males are all mandatory. And then shin, instep, foot pads, arm guards, all of that is allowed, but not required. So we want to make sure that everyone feels safe, but that's the minimum protection that's required in this competition. Judges, make sure that you're looking to make sure that everyone has a mouth guard. We're not going to check and enforce growing cups. You'll just say, we know that is a requirement for the competition. If you see that somebody does not have a mouth guard, you cannot start competition until they either acquire one or you get verbal permission from a parent or guardian if they're under 18, or if they're over 18, that they agree to the risks. Really try and encourage them to use a mouth guard. Even if they get hit just slightly, they're going to cut up their gums and their lip, and that's just not fun. So we do recommend that. Okay, so we know most of this. Let's go to the big stuff here. So scoring a point. In order to score a point, 3 feet must be in the ring. So everybody knows the 3-foot rule. Okay, so 2 feet in the ring. You have to have both feet in the ring in order to score a point. If the person you're striking has 1 foot out of the ring, you can still score a point on them, but they can't score a point on you. So if I do a punch and one of my foot is outside the ring, a good judge will call that a no point. Okay. If I have 2 feet out of the ring, then obviously no one can score a point. And then the center judge should bring them back into the ring. Okay. All basic hand and foot techniques are allowed to the allowable target areas are 1 point. That's from the ears forward and the front of the face. Nothing to the top of the head, nothing to the back of the head, nothing to the back. Everything from the waist up. Again, from the ribs forward. Okay, so nothing towards the back. Anything that is on a border is fair game. So if they kick the belt, that's a point. If the kick is below the belt, that's not a point. If they kick towards the ear, that's a point. If the entire technique is behind the ear, that's not a point. Okay, so boundary areas are points. Remember that a sidestep or a defensive cross-legged stance with a counter is 2 points. And then a jump kick and spin kick is 2 points. A jump spinning kick with the base leg above the opponent's belt is 3 points. Okay, so that's a very high kick to have both legs up above your partner's belt. That's 3. Sweeps and other takedowns are not allowed. I don't know why grabbing is a question mark. Grabbing, you can hook and hold for less than a second. Okay, so that's basically just a trap and then a strike. But any type of hold like this, that's no point. Questions on how to determine if it's a point or not before we get into contact? Okay, so moving into contact. Light contact to the body and the side of the head is acceptable if it's a light touch. So I think about going up and giving your grandma a kiss. If it's harder than what you do to kiss your grandma on the cheek, then that's excessive force. So this is touching the skin, not penetrating the skin. Okay, so touch the skin, penetrate the skin, bad. Same thing with the dobok. So to the body, you can touch the dobok, you can touch the skin, but there should be no penetration through. So if you hear it, that's penetration. So you can score a point without touching. You can get you can begin to approximate the target and have a point up until you touch the target. But if you go penetrate through the target, that's a warning. Make sure that you look at the competitor's comfort zones. So we're not going to tell you how far away they should be. The competitors will tell you how close or how far they should be for a point. So if you have the little kids and they're sparring and it's like a foot away and that's where all the techniques are going, that's where you want to score the points. Because that if you ask them to get closer, slowly they'll get closer and then you'll have an accident. And then whose fault was the contact, right? I would say the center judge had some culpability there for encouraging them to go outside their comfort zone. Now, instructors, you should be teaching them to get closer and closer. So at the Dan level, the Kodanja will be the center refs. So Kodanja, you will make sure that for Dan members that the contact is close. So it doesn't have to touch, but Dan members, it should be close to the target. We will enforce that at the Dan level. Okay? Colored belts, though, let them decide, especially the adults, right? So don't tell the adult men to get closer, because then we go into blood. Okay. All right. Any questions on contact? Oh, I didn't mention. Contact to the face in any way must be called as a warning. So if you see them touch the face, that is a warning. Okay, so we're going to be very strict on that one. Remember, 2 warnings and it's disqualification. Remind the competitors ahead of time that disqualification just means that you lost the match. We're not chastising you. Like, it happens. That's just the rules of the game. But sometimes people feel really bad when they're disqualified, as if they're being reprimanded, and that's not the case.
But Savanim, can I ask a question
Yes,
about
sir.
that also? So just to clarify, in a situation where a competitor is disqualified, but would still continue to spar had they just lost the match. So for example, maybe they were going to move on to the 3rd place match. They are still eligible to spar in that next match. Is that true?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Disqualification is just for that match. There are very few scenarios where that's true because we'll be doing single elimination.
Right. It would only be that third place.
Correct.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. Good question. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. And then obviously something about, any bleeding, heavy swelling, knocking the wind out of the other contestant, something that's obviously being done out of anger or would be immediate disqualification. We're not going to wait for the second warning on that. Okay. Let's go through the, let's see, do we need to do flags now? Okay, we'll do the flags. Right hand, blue flag. Left hand, red flag. Point red, point blue. Try and get your hand to a right angle so that we all look the same and that the judges look, again, professional and disciplined. Try and keep your back up straight. If you can help it, don't lean back on your chair. I recognize some of you, as the day progresses, that might not be realistic, but that's the aspiration. Okay. Cross the flags in front of your face. That's a no see. And then cross the flags down in front, down low. That's no point. What's the difference? When the center judge is determining who wins, they ask two questions. Is there confirmation? That means there has to be at least two judges that agree. So you can't just have one judge agree and call a point. Confirmation and a majority. What's the majority of 5? 3. What's the majority of 4? 3. What's the majority of 3? 2. What's the majority of 2? 2.
2.
Okay. All right. So you can't, that's why confirmation, you can't have a majority of 1. Okay. All right. So with a majority, no C means I'm not voting. So if we have somebody that says one person say no C, now how many votes are there? 4. If 2 people say no C, then we have 3 votes. Do you see how that works? But a no point means I'm voting and I say no point. So that's factored into the decision. Is it a majority or not? So let's do the hardest call. So we've got Master Trin. He's going to call for blue. Go ahead. Right hand up. Blue. Okay. Okay, great. Mrs. Nelson, you're blue. Mr. Persinger, you're red. Okay, so we got 2 blues, 1 red, 1 no C. That's Miss Garcia, no C. And then Mr. Coombs, you're no point, and we won't be able to see your hands. You're crossing them down low. Okay. All right. So with that no C, how many votes?
1, 2,
4
3,
votes.
4.
4
Oh, 3.
votes, right? So the no point is a vote. The no C is not a vote. 2 for blue, 1 for red. That's 4 votes. How many for red? 1.
2.
And then how many for blue is 2. Do we have a majority?
No.
No. So what's the call?
No point.
No point. Okay. So that's what the center judge will be going through their mind to determine a point. And that's the only question you have to ask. Is there a majority decision? And if there's 4 votes, you need to have 3 for a majority. Okay. All right. And we'll try and get 5 judges. If we only have 3 judges, it's the same thing, though. You just ask, is there a majority? Okay. Entering the ring. I think you guys can read through that ceremony. Okay. So that's point sparring. There's another sparring division competition for Dons. And this is for Moo Duk Kwan certified Don members. And we're calling it here continuous sparring, but it's called Mudo Darian, martial way sparring. And this is a sparring method that H.C. Huang Kwanjung Nim invented because it better aligns with our philosophy. So you'll notice that when any Tang Soo Do or Subak Do practitioner goes and competes at an open tournament, our forms and the way we move looks different than other competitors. But then when we go in the ring and spar, we look just like them. And he didn't think that was right. He felt like, based on our philosophy, there should be a difference, just like there is in forms. And so he created this methodology, this method of sparring. And it's, again, a 2-minute round, but you don't, it's 5 rounds, 20 seconds each. Point sparring, it's 1 2-minute round. This is 5 20-second matches. And at the end of each round, all 5 judges vote on who won that round. So whether you have 3 or 5 judges, you'll always have somebody who wins the round. The criteria is really who controlled the match. And so who demonstrated not just who scored the most points, but also who had the better defensive strategy. In point sparring, all we do is incentivize offense, getting the point. But we don't incentivize good defense and defensive strategy. Defensive strategy would also include counterattacks, though, right? But we don't think about defense as something that's an important aspect of point sparring usually. So in this continuous sparring model, we will be looking at how good their offense is, but also how good their defense is, and determine who's the winner. So you could, in fact, have somebody who's trying really hard to hit somebody, and the other one is moving very well and sidestepping and controlling the match, but never actually scores a point on the other person either. But generally, when you see this, the person that scores the most points does end up winning anyway. Those of you that have never seen this before, one, don't worry, you'll probably not judge this one, but you can go onto the Digital Dojang YouTube channel and look at some Mudos value sparring matches to get a taste for what that looks like ahead of time. Okay? All right, any questions on sparring? Let's go to the score sheets for that, for any of you that will be our scorekeepers and timekeepers. The timekeeper role is pretty easy. You'll just use your phone with the stopwatch. And for Mudo value sparring, it will be 20 seconds. And for point sparring, it's 2 minutes. You never stop the clock unless the judge points to you and says time. If the center judge says time, then you stop the time and wait for them to start again. Okay? That's the timekeeper's role. The scorekeeper's role, this time instead of a marker and a whiteboard, I bought some scoring devices. So it's like cards that you flip. So I think that'll be a better experience for everybody. Okay, so we have those. And basically, the scorekeeper is just looking, and when the judge looks over at you and says point red, you're going to flip and make sure that red gets another point. Okay, same thing for blue. So you're in charge of the scoring. And then you also have the clipboard to be looking at the brackets. So the brackets look like this. And this is going to be if there's 3 people in the division, and this is called a round robin, where each competitor will spar everyone. So here we'll have partner A sparring partner B, and then partner C sparring partner A, and then partner B sparring partner C. It's important here that each time that you add up how many points and record how many points each competitor has, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that partner A wins a match, partner B wins a match, and partner C wins a match. Well, partner B didn't even spar that one, but you get the idea. Okay. So at that point, what you do is you'll look at total points. You'd add up the points that partner A had on both of their matches and so on and so forth, and determine who won based on that. If there's a tie on points, then what you'll do is have them spar another match to break the tie. And then whoever wins that match wins. And if there's still a tie, you just go into sudden win. Next point wins. Okay, so that's how that'll work. So in a round robin, make sure that all the competitors know that number of points matters. Because sometimes for good sportsmanship, if you're the dominant competitor, after you're 3, 4, 5 points ahead of the other person, you might let up a little bit because it's just not being very nice. But when points matter, you'll want to keep going in a round robin. Okay, questions on that? Then the other ones here, you'll have the brackets here where you'll be able to put everybody in: partner 1, partner 2, partner 3. Oh wait, where did they go? Oh, up here. Sorry. Partner 1, partner. You see it here. Oh, so you put partner 1 here. 1 and 2 spar. 3 and 4 spar. You see that the numbers for each person. So on the even numbers, it's pretty easy. So here you go to is that for 6? Yeah, so you go 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and then 1 and 6 is how you'll do it. Okay, so it shows you exactly how it works for each one. So here 3 and 4 will spar, 1 and 2 will spar, and then number 5 here is the one that we call gets a bye. And we'll have these brackets set up ahead of time, or we'll have the Pace family. They're going to be the tournament directors for the weekend. They've got a randomizing process to determine who gets the buys. So you'll have a fully functioning bracket, and then you just have to follow the lines. So 1 and 2 spars, and then you put the winner here. 3 and 4 spars, and the winner of 3 and 4 goes here. 5 spars, the winner of 3 and 4, and then those winners spar to come up with first place. Then it'll tell you the losers of these two sparring matches will spar each other for third place. Scorekeepers, if you're really good at doing this, just an aspiration, if it doesn't happen, no big deal. It would be nice if the losers of these two groups spar for third before you have the people spar for first and second. So just from a spectator perspective, right? It's like, okay, this is the third place match, and then we're gonna do the final for first and second as the last match. Okay. So pretty simple. You can just kind of follow these sheets. And for a record, if you could just annotate somewhere here how many points each person had in each of the matches, so that later on we just have a record of kind of what happened during the match. And then here you just put who's first, second, and third. When you're done, you'll bring that back up to the tournament directors. They'll hold on to those sheets for when we give the awards out. Okay. Awards will be given at the end of the tournament day, because the 10th article of faith that Huang Qi developed is always finish what you start. And so we want to make sure that all of the competitors finish the event. Not great customer service, but it is aligned with our philosophy. Okay. All right. I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.